you today?
I'm doing well, and you?
Doing good. I'm Miss Garza. I am the principal here at Custer Elementary, and I'll be conducting this interview with you today.
Great. It is so wonderful to meet you. I'm really looking forward to today.
I'm really excited to meet you as well. So we're going to start off this interview with me asking you a couple of questions about kind of just how you got to be here, your teaching philosophy, a few hypotheticals, and then I'll give you the opportunity to ask me some questions at the end. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Perfect. Let's get started.
Wonderful.
So, tell me a little bit about why you decided to become a teacher.
I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. When I was a child, I would come home from school and teach lessons to my pets and my little sister. I'm sure they hated it, but it made me so happy.
That's so cute.
I worked at summer camps when I was growing up, so I'm very familiar with that aspect of it. I love children, and I love seeing their eyes light up when they learn something new. That's kind of what drives me.
I love that. It is such a beautiful moment when you see a kid spark when they learn something.
I completely agree.
So why did you decide to apply here at Custer Elementary?
Well, I grew up locally, so I'm very familiar with this district and this campus. I went to Allen High School, and I had very close friends who were in the Lovejoy ISD school district. I'm very big on the idea that I want to teach with people and families that I consider to be my own family. That's something that's really important to me. I love, it's something that really drives me, is waking up every day feeling like I'm serving someone that is a part of my family. And I think that working in a smaller school district such as this gives me the perfect opportunity to do that. I'm really looking for a district where I can plant myself and grow my roots, and I really think that this community is exactly what I'm looking for.
I hope it is what you're looking for. I feel like we could definitely serve some of those needs for you here. We are a very small, close-knit community and school district, so I'm really glad that you decided to apply with us. So can you tell me a little bit about, if you were to be hired here at Custer, what makes you unique?
I am very high energy and very charismatic. I'm super friendly, and I'm one of those people that can make friends instantly with almost anyone. I think that makes me very valuable to have on a team, just because you never have to worry about if I'm going to fit in. You never have to worry about, you don't have to worry about stuff like that. I feel like I'm very versatile, and I feel like I'm one of those people who can really be happy anywhere. Honestly, the biggest thing for me is that I feel like I'm in a community, and I have that sense of family. So if I have those things, I think I'm really going to flourish. I think that's something that makes me pretty unique.
I like that. So tell me, in a classroom setting, when you're teaching, what is that one thing that frustrates you the most? Kind of your pet peeve, maybe, per se.
So, thinking about it, I think probably the biggest thing that frustrates me the most is the red tape that kind of keeps teachers from being able to teach to the whole child. That's probably the thing that frustrates me the most.
Can you elaborate a little bit for me?
Sure. So here's an instance for you. When I was at a previous school in a different school district, we were required to collect data. And while I think that data is absolutely necessary and important, and it is one of those things that should continuously drive instruction, at the previous district I was at, it was to a point where I felt like I had to collect so much data that I couldn't teach to the kids the way that I was supposed to. I really had to take a step back from all of the kids and really just focus on collecting that data as frequently and as often as I could, just because I had to report it so frequently. And that's, I think, the thing that frustrated me the most. Like I said, I definitely think that data is necessary. Like it's absolutely something that you need to have, but there's got to be a balance between the two. Otherwise, it's hard to function.
I agree. As teachers and administrators and people in the education industry, it's really hard sometimes with all the hats we have to wear and all of the different ways that we're pulled with things like data and then also meeting many other needs of children. So I sympathize and empathize because I've been in that position myself back when I was a teacher, and it can be very difficult. But I'm glad that you also see that importance in data, because here we do put a lot of importance on it, but we do try to strike that balance that you were talking about. So I really love that you see that as well.
That's great to hear. I'm definitely looking to be at a school that understands that balance. So I'm really happy to hear that it seems like we're kind of on the same page about that.
Yeah. So can you tell me then a little bit about your teaching philosophy?
Sure. So my teaching philosophy is really that no child should ever be left behind. All students learn differently, and they all learn at different levels. So I really think that it is absolutely critical to meet students where they are at, to do that. Otherwise, you're teaching on this level, but a kid can be so far down here that even though you're teaching up here, they still aren't able to understand the concept. So it's so important in order to ensure that that child is not consistently struggling, that you meet that child where they are in order to help them grow.
So how do you meet children where they are?
So I do that through differentiation. The way that I have found that I believe that I can use differentiation the best is in my small group setting. Typically I like to, if the schedule permits it, I like to do a small group setting twice a day. I like to do one for like an ER block and then one for math. And that way I'm able to meet with those small groups of kids, teach them individual skills, collect small amounts of data to see where they're at, and then drive instruction from there.
Wow, I really like the way that you are practicing that differentiation twice a day with both that ELAR and that math block. I think it's really important in those two areas that we are able to gather that data. So can you tell me a little bit about then how you would gather that data in those small group settings?
Sure. So I can do it a couple different ways. One of the ways that I like to use is I like to have a list of criteria. And I'll pull those, that group of kiddos in, and we'll go through some skills, and I'll kind of just quickly check off some of that criteria, if they have it, if they don't have it. And I really make sure that when I'm creating that criteria, it is relevant to, the target that we are trying to meet that day, because I want to make sure that I'm assessing them on things that are pertinent and relevant and things that, we're learning at that moment. So that's what I would do is, go through that checklist, and then, later that day or that evening or whatever, whenever I'm looking back over that data, I can kind of look at it and say, okay, child A, B, and C understood this criteria, but child D and E didn't understand this criteria. So then that can kind of drive how I form my groups and kind of give them the differentiation that they need. So that way I'm meeting the needs of those children specifically, and I'm not instructing them on material that they either already know or that's above their level or anything, that's not going to be beneficial to them.
Great, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about first day of school. So if you were to get hired here and we came in to have that first day of school instruction, tell me a little bit about how you would prepare for that and what that would look like in Miss Bruce's classroom.
So since I'm applying for the job of a kindergarten teacher, I would say that the most important thing is procedures. I want to set up our year for success. And that in order to set up the year for success, I have to ensure that my students are concrete on these procedures. So some of the procedures would be like practicing lining up, practicing sitting at our desks, practicing sitting on the carpet, practicing bathroom signals, things like that.
Oh, isn't kindergarten fun?
Oh, it's a joy. It is a joy.
So tell me a little bit about, pick one of those procedures just to say, like, lining up. Tell me, how does that procedure look in your classroom? How do you kind of scaffold your kids to get to where you want them to be, where they can get in that line quietly and without running in a timely manner?
So I try to make it as engaging and exciting and fun as possible. When they're that age, anything that seems game-like is just the best thing ever. So I'm gonna make sure that it is lighthearted and there's just happiness and positivity going around the whole time, and we're just gonna, make it a game. All right, guys, I'm gonna see who can do it the fastest this time, but you have to be quiet. Okay, guys, I'm gonna see who can do it the quietest this time, or who can do it like a robot this time, or who can do it like a bunny rabbit this time, and stuff like that, just to make it fun and engaging, but then also following that up with positive reinforcement, always following that up with positive reinforcement. So, we're gonna hop to our spot like a bunny, and then I'm gonna give praise and praise and praise to all of the kids who did such a great job. And I don't want to use anything negative. I don't want to be harsh or negative, I don't want to point out any negatives really at all. Just kind of praise those positive actions immediately, as soon as they happen, as soon as I see them, because they're at that age where they need that instant gratification, just to kind of get them to where they need to be.
I really like that. I think it's really important, especially in kindergarten, that we're not singling any students out or using that negative reinforcement, especially when we use it directed at one student. It can be very damaging to their little psyche. So I love that.
Absolutely, I agree.
Your focus on positive reinforcement is something that I think would work really well here. So tell me a little bit then about how do you evaluate your students?
So there's a couple different ways I evaluate my students. I do both informal and formal assessments.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what a formative assessment looks like.
So one of the platforms that I use most frequently is Seesaw. Do you guys use Seesaw here?
A little bit, but why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with it?
Sure. So we use Seesaw very frequently to do both, to not just do those formal assessments, but also to connect with parents. But I'll kind of come back to that later. But so an example of one way I could use Seesaw is, we could be, I could put an assignment on there where they have to write all the letters that they know and then record it with matching sounds, so write down A, B, C, D, E, and then go through and point to each one and say the sound that they know. So that's one example of a way I could use a formal assessment on Seesaw in a kindergarten setting. And the benefit of that too is then I can also, while keeping that formal data for myself, I can also keep that on record to show to whoever I need to show that to, whether that be the parents or whether that be administration or interventionist or whoever it needs to be. I have that data immediately available for anybody.
And what about informal assessments? What do formative assessments look like in your classroom? So
I try to do things that are just very quick. We have not the longest attention span. So things that are very quick, just a quick, thumbs up, thumbs down, things that are silly. If you want to put your finger on your nose, put your hands on your head, just kind of getting them moving, because we need to move a lot. So things that are getting them moving, but still can give me a quick check if we understand that concept or not.
And what do we do if we don't understand that concept? How do you reteach or provide intervention when we see through those formal assessments and also through summative assessments that we have students who are struggling?
So typically it's not going to be on the same day. Like I said, we have a very short attention span, as you know. So if there is a need to reteach that, it's going to have to be, the next day, but it's going to be immediately, as soon as I can, get that topic in. And we're going to try explaining it a different way, trying to get them some hands-on activities, so that way they can really kind of learn it a different way. It might be the way that I'm phrasing it. It might be the way that I'm saying it. There's lots of different reasons why it might not have clicked the first time. So I'm going to try different strategies to try to get them to understand that material. But like I said, with my philosophy, I'm not going to leave anybody behind, so I would never just move on and say, all right, well, half of us didn't get that, but we're just going to keep going. You know, I would never do something like that. So
I think it's so important too. I like you mentioned, you know, maybe having them do something hands-on and explaining it in different ways. It's really important, like you said, not leaving children behind. We want to make sure that we are meeting those kids who have those different learning styles.
Absolutely.
Those kinesthetic learners, like we mentioned, and our logical, mathematical type learners, and our verbal or interpersonal learners.
Exactly.
So I love that you acknowledge that.
And another way too is, you know, if I do a quick informal assessment and I see that, you know, everyone understands this except for those just a couple kiddos, I probably wouldn't reteach. I'm not going to reteach that to the whole class, but that would be the perfect opportunity for me to pull those kids in during a small group session and reteach that to just them, so that way I'm not also reteaching to everybody when not everybody needs it. So,
and over time, hopefully, if it's the same kids who are always struggling in that same way, you kind of get to know what type of learning style those specific students might have. Helps you form groups for later.
Exactly.
Very good. So we were talking a little bit about Seesaw before, and you mentioned that you like to use it for communicating with parents. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you communicate with parents? How do you use Seesaw? Are there any other forms of communication that you like to use?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to do a few different things. One of the things I like to do is just send out a newsletter once a week, and that's just going to be blanket information. Okay, here's dates, upcoming dates, here's some new information, here is just, you know, what we're going to be learning in the next week. But like I said, the information that's going in the newsletter is going to just be very like broad, basic information, just so parents are aware of what's going on for the upcoming week. Another thing I like to do is use Seesaw to send pictures and videos of the students in various settings throughout the day. So if there is, you know, I have one of the kids at my small group, and we are making letters with, let's say this, we are counting with blocks, and we're practicing counting to 10, 1 to 1, counting to 10. I would pull a kiddo over and I could film them using Seesaw, just that one kiddo, so that way I'm not having, you know, the whole class up there. And I would have them, okay, I'm going to film you to show mom and dad. Let me see your best work. And I would have them count 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10, and then I would send that to parents. That way parents kind of know what they're doing in school and know where they're standing and stuff like that. And I also like to use it just for fun stuff too. Obviously it depends on FERPA and all of that, but if I see a group of kiddos who's, like, you know, if it's allowed on, their FERPA allows it, and they are sitting together reading books, when, you know, when sitting together reading books, I might snap a picture and send it to mom and dad. Or I see some kids that never play soccer, but today they decided that they wanted to go play soccer. I might take a picture of that and send it to mom and dad, just so they kind of have an insight of what's happening throughout the day.
That definitely excites parents to get those throughout the day.
Yeah, and I hear it all the time, you know, that kids come home and mom and dad say, so what did you do today? And
nothing.
I didn't do anything. But when I send those Seesaw videos and pictures, it really opens up that conversation, because, you know, you can have a kiddo that says, I didn't do anything today, and mom and dad are like, really? Because I saw this picture of you writing, and then I saw a picture of you reading, and then I saw a video of you playing soccer, so can you tell me a little bit about that? You know, it just really opens up that conversation. I think that really creates definitely some positivity, like in a good like repertoire between parents and me, and keeps the positive energy flowing. So last thing I like to do is send home daily communication on their child's behavior through my behavior system that I implement in my classroom.
Okay, so what does that look like? What is your behavior system?
So as we talked about earlier, it is never my goal to single out one kiddo. I never want to do that. So it is a very private system that I have. You know, I've seen before teachers that have like the color chart and stuff like that. I never want to do that because I never want anyone to feel embarrassed or ashamed or anything like that. I want to keep the attitude in my classroom always happy and positive and accepting, and I don't want kids to be embarrassed or anything like that. So I like to do a daily communication folder, and in that folder is like a 10 frame. And every day we not every day, so I guess prior to getting to the everyday part, I have a lesson for the kids with them. It's a very interactive lesson about something that we call red choices and green choices. Mm-hmm. So red choices are things that, you know, that are not okay in school, like hitting and kicking or screaming or jumping or calling out, things like that, things that, you know, we're trying to avoid in the school setting. And green choices are things that we celebrate a lot. And when we see those green choices, I make sure to point them out and, you know, give lots and lots of praise when we see those things. Those are things like raising your hand and staying in your seat and sitting, you know, the right way and being kind to others and those kinds of things that we really want to see from kiddos. So after we have a lesson on that, and we are, you know, students are very clear on what a green choice looks like and red choice looks like, you know, we do a lot of practicing with that. We practice what those green choices look like. We practice what those red choices look like, which often turns into something that's really funny, which is okay. After all that is said and done and the kiddos kind of have a clear understanding of what those two things are, then I introduce this folder that has a 10 frame in it, and every day when they are making green choices, they get a sticker for that day. If they are making red choices for that day, they do not get a sticker for that day. Once you fill up the 10 frame, they get to earn a privilege. And a privilege is a list of fun things that we have generated as a class to do when you fill up that 10 frame. So some examples could be like no shoes day, pajama day, bring a stuffed animal to school, show and tell, stuff like that. So you're never really kind of, what's the word? Like, you're always rewarding those kids that are making good choices, if that makes sense. Like, you're always...
It's not a punishment system.
It's not a punishment system, and no one's ever being punished. But it is a way for me to communicate with parents. You know, we made some red choices today. Oftentimes, if it's small red choices, I probably won't even put why in there, just because I don't want it to be this thing where they go home every day and they're, you know, they're sad because they made a red choice. You know, we talk a lot about how sometimes we make red choices and that's okay. You know, it's not the end of the world that we make a red choice as long as we flip it around and we tried harder the next day, and we tried to make those green choices. So
learning from mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's what I like to do. So those are kind of 3 ways that I like to communicate with parents. So it's kind of that daily behavior communication. As far as a seesaw, I like to have at least 3 things that I send out to each parent or each family every week. So those are pretty much every other day, and then the newsletter is once a week. So
I think those are some good forms of communication.
There's a lot of them. Maybe it's a little overwhelming, but it's kindergarten.
And they want to know.
And, you know, parents want to know. And I think probably with the older grades, that would definitely be overkill.
But for kindergarten,
you know, we need a little extra assistance, and we need, you know, that parent support and everything like that. So yeah.
I really liked your behavior system that you had there. Can I ask then, so if you had a student who made a red choice, mm-hmm. and maybe made a bigger red choice, mm-hmm. You know, something beyond just maybe calling out, but maybe like, you know, pushing another student or something that was of a higher degree. How do you go about handling that in the classroom? You talked about not singling students out, and so I'm interested to see, how do you approach that child in that situation? So
it depends on if it's, you know, it's always, It depends. If it's a student who this is like a one-time thing, it's kind of out of character, it would be that same sort of, I'm not going to sign their folder or anything like that. If it is a continuous problem, that is going to be a conversation that I have with the parents.
What about the conversation you have with the student at both of those points, or at which point do you feel like you need to pull the student aside and talk to them, and what does that conversation look like?
If a child is ever physical with another child, then that child needs to be immediately, we need to have a discussion immediately. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean, that I pull them out right then in front of everybody, but it needs to be as soon as I can, meet with that child. And sometimes, I've had to kind of, all right, everyone's got to, we're going to move on to something else, get the other kids kind of doing something where they're hands-on doing something, they're not really paying attention to everyone else. And then I can pull that kiddo aside to talk to them because I really don't want to, like I said, single anybody out or make anybody feel bad or embarrassed or anything like that. So it's really, as you know, like a day-to-day, it's every day is different and every class is different, and I'm trying my best to handle the situation as soon as I possibly can. And sometimes that means handling it right then if I can, but sometimes that means I'm gonna have to wait 15-20 minutes until I can get everybody kind of settled into something, and then I'm gonna pull that kiddo aside.
Okay, so you have your private conversation with that student when you can.
Yeah.
And then, so you talked about how when things become ongoing, we need to bring parents into it, and I agree. And so, if we had a situation where we brought a parent in, we were seeing a reoccurring problem, and the parent became agitated, how do you respond to parents who get agitated or frustrated and become defensive when you have to address them about issues you see or potential problems or concerns you have with a student?
So do you mean like academic or behavior or both?
Behavior?
Yeah. So I always just try to be as positive as possible. And, I'm never, I'm always going to default to back to the parent is probably what my go-to would be. I always want parents to feel like they know their child best, and I don't want to ever step on any toes. Mm-hmm. So if a parent, becomes very defensive and adamant, I'm really going to try my best to kind of look at it from their perspective, and try to just be as reasonable as possible with them, and try my hardest to make sure that they know we're on the same team here. We want the same thing. So I guess probably what I would do is take a step back and maybe reevaluate myself and reevaluate how I said things, how I might have come across, and then maybe reapproach the situation coming from a different angle. Because if they're getting defensive, something was misconstrued because we should be on the same page and we should be wanting the same thing for their kiddo. So.
Right. Just like you said before, the importance of community for you and for us here is really important. So we always want our parents to feel like this is one big family, one big team. And then also I did want to hear, how do you approach parents when you have academic concerns?
So that's where that data comes in. I always want to be as data-driven as possible. I don't want to bring any feelings into it. I don't want to bring any, I don't ever want to make it come across as if I'm disappointed or anything like that. I just want to these are the facts. This is our expectation. This is where we expect our kiddos to be at this point, and this is where your child is, and this is the data that I have to prove that. And I also want to come to parents with next steps. I don't ever want to come to a parent and just say, okay, well, this is what I've got. So now what?
Figure it out.
Yeah, I don't ever want to do that. So I want to come to parents with some next steps that I already have planned. And I have already to show them that I've already kind of taken that initiative. I'm already noticing things aren't where they're supposed to be. Here's what I noticed. Here's why I noticed it. and here's what we're going to do to try to remedy the situation.
Very good.
Okay.
So then can you tell me, let's talk a little bit about you and your strengths and weaknesses as a teacher. What do you see your greatest strengths, and then where do we also see your greatest weaknesses?
So, as my greatest strength, I would say I'm a very happy person. I'm very positive. I have a positive outlook every day. I'm a super morning person. I always wake up happy. I'm really happy that I wake up that way. It feels good to be me, honestly. I like to bring joy to others. And I really consider myself super easy to talk to and easy to get along with. So I think that's where a strength of mine lies, is I really feel like I would fit in well with anybody, like any team. Like I really feel like I'm not like too much, but but I'm like a good medium where I'm easy to talk to and get along with, and I have a very easy time making friends and building connections and building relationships. It's something that comes naturally to me. So I would say that's probably my greatest strength.
Okay, and then your greatest weakness?
I have a tendency to be slightly unorganized or look slightly unorganized. I have a system of organized chaos, and it works for me. I always know where everything is. I always know how to find everything I'm looking for. But I think to others who are looking in, it can look a little bit chaotic. It can look a little bit unorganized. So I would say that's probably my biggest weakness and something that I'm definitely working on.
I would say that's a weakness for a lot of teachers. I think we all know, walking into a teacher, you can't judge their effectiveness by the tidiness of their desk ever.
Yeah, it can be hard sometimes, especially when you have a desk and then you're pulling small groups up to your desk, but then it's also your desk where your computer is, so it's just a lot.
We are looking.
If I could tell you, I have one way that I build relationships with my students, and I would really like to share that with you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. So one of the things that I really like to do to build relationships with my students is using Kagan structures. Do you guys use Kagan structures in this school?
We do, but I can tell you I'm not the most familiar. So tell me, how do you use them, and why do you like it?
So we have, there's both academic and non-academic Kagan structures to build relationships with my students. At least once a week, I like to do a non-academic class builder. I feel like it's always a lot of fun, and we always come out the other side a little bit happier, a little bit more positive, and a little bit friendlier with each other. And it's a great way, I think, to build that relationship.
So what is your favorite non-academic Kagan structure that you use to build up your class?
I can't remember what the name of it is. There's a lot of them, but I know I should know it, but I just can't remember it off the top of my head. But so basically, all the students get into a circle, and they take off one of their shoes. Their shoe goes into the middle of the circle. Once all the shoes are in the middle of the circle, we all hold hands. Once we're all holding hands, we walk around a couple times, so that way we're not directly in front of the shoe that we just dropped off, because we want to make it kind of a little challenging. And then when we are in a different spot than where we started, we all have to work together to help each other get the right shoe on the right foot. The trick is you're not allowed to break hands with the people that you are in your circle with. A couple other rules that might be just pertinent to kindergarten are no pushing, no shoving, no screaming. We get really excited. But
and this works in a kindergarten classroom.
It does work, and it takes a little bit of practice. Have to do it like maybe once or twice beforehand, but then and they love it. And like I said, I think it's a great way to build relationships and get everybody involved. Everybody's having fun. It's not anything, because they're all working as a group. It's not like we're anybody is like singled out or anything.
There's no
like that.
loser.
Nope, there's no loser. Everybody's having fun.
How long does something like this take to do?
It takes maybe like 3-4 minutes.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it doesn't take long at all. Yeah, they really like it, and I think that's an awesome way to build relationships within the class and also build relationships with your students.
Help students build relationships with each other, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. So I can see on your resume that you have both a bachelor's and your master's degree. From University of North Texas.
I do, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and kind of your journey getting here to education, to kindergarten?
Sure. So I got my bachelor's degree from the University of North Texas in PR and marketing. And then after about a year, I went back to school and got my master's of education. I did that because I kind of wanted to have lots of options with where I wanted to go. I love being in a classroom. So that's where I want to be right now, but I definitely think later on down the road I could definitely see myself in a different educational position where my bachelor's degree might come in handy. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, a little bit of both.
Okay, I like that. So are you kind of looking to the future potentially for some other opportunities, administration, campus otherwise?
Eventually, but not right now. So right now I'm definitely looking forward to being in the classroom, looking forward to getting my feet wet in there. Anything that I would want to do later on, it would be years down the road. But eventually, yes, but not anytime soon, if that makes sense.
Okay, and then I can see you've also done some volunteer work before. Can you tell me a little bit about where you volunteered and what kind of work you did?
Sure. So I have volunteered at Dallas CASA. Are you familiar with that?
No, I've never heard of that organization.
Okay, so CASA, it stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and basically CASA volunteers are people who help kiddos who are going through the legal system, either because their parents are getting divorced or their kids are being put into foster care, anything of that sort. So the role of a CASA advocate is someone who is there to advocate on behalf of the child. So while I was never an advocate, I did volunteer with them while I was still getting my bachelor's degree. So I never took the step to be an actual CASA advocate. I was still able to go to court proceedings and meet with kids and kind of be there for them and bring a little bit of happiness to them because a lot of them are going through some really, really tough stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. Let me see, I had a couple other questions here. So your previous school district, can you tell me a little bit about any roles you played there? Were you on any type of leadership teams or sponsor any clubs or events? Anything you just kind of did to make yourself a part of that school district and that campus community?
I had a hard time at my previous school district doing that, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to potentially coming to this district. Unfortunately, the school district I was at before was a very large district, and I had a hard time getting involved because there was just so many people, and I feel like I was new, and there wasn't anyone there to kind of help me figure out where I could go or what I could do. So I kind of, and that's kind of a reason, why I'm looking to come to a district like this is because I feel like with a smaller district, I could potentially be able to find more of those leadership opportunities and things of that nature. So that way I could, because it's very important to me to be part of a community, and I didn't feel like that I was in my last district. So it's definitely something I'm looking for.
Well, great, because that is something I really like to see in my teachers is that they take an active role within our campus. So I'm excited to hear that that's something you are also looking for. I think that brings me to the end of the questions I had for you. But do you have any questions that you would like to ask me?
Yes, actually, I have a few, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so one of the questions I have is, could you just tell me a little bit about the culture here at this school?
Yeah, so we have an open door policy type culture. I really like for my teachers to feel like they can always come to me, that my door is always open to them, and that my whole office staff, our door is always open to teachers because we're here to support you. We always want to think of ourselves as one big family, one big community, who's here to help support and meet the needs and build up every single student. We never want our teachers to feel like they're going at it on their own. So anytime I can do something to support a teacher, I want to be able to do that. So if they have concerns, anxieties, problems with students, parents, having the materials they need, having the professional development opportunities that they need, I always want teachers to feel like they can come to me with that. I also feel like among the teachers, our campus culture is very positive. We do like to build each other up a lot. We have lots of groups and teams within our staff to allow teachers to have opportunity to have input into pretty much everything we do here on campus and give them leadership opportunities and the chance to feel like they're part of all big decisions and just the daily functions of the school.
That's really great because, like I said, that's how I started this interview. Is I really want to be somewhere where I feel like I'm part of a community and I feel like I'm part of a family, and that really sounds like something you guys have here. So that's really great to hear.
That's what we try to do.
Excellent. That makes me really happy. Well, I've got another question. Do you guys have any mentoring programs here?
We do. So our district has a mentoring program that all of our campuses are a part of. So in that program, new teachers, whether you're new to teaching altogether or just new to the district, you are entered into our mentoring program where you are kind of paired up with a veteran teacher from your campus. So it would be somebody here.
Oh, good.
And you would be able to work together. You'd have some time periodically where you would meet with that person and just be able to ask them any questions, get any guidance. We like to do this, of course, for new teachers, but also teachers who are just new to the district.
I love that. Yeah, because it's nice to be able to meet with people who are familiar with, even though you've been teaching before, things might be different here. So it's nice to have someone.
Right, and we really, we have a lot of strong beliefs in our culture, our open door policy, being a community. So we really like to have that mentoring program in place just so we can really bring people into the fold. It also offers professional development opportunities that you can attend throughout the year. That they're free of charge, of course, and they give teachers the opportunity to meet with other teachers both on campus and in the district. That same mentoring program also offers the opportunity for teachers to visit other classrooms, both here on our campus and then also some teachers like to visit other campuses. And so it does allow for time for that as well. So it's a pretty encompassing mentoring program.
Excellent. That's good to hear. I have another question for you. So what goals and expectations do you have for your teachers?
So for my teachers, I really like to focus on encouraging them to be lifelong learners. And this is, a goal for myself as well.
I love that. Yeah, that's important to me as well.
I think as teachers, we teach our kids and we tell them, you need to learn these things, you need to grow. So then we ourselves also always need to be trying to grow. So, and it looks different for every teacher. And I really like for us to try and work those into our yearly goals as well. How do you plan to self-improve for yourself? I think it's so important that teachers are able to plan their own growth. I don't want to be the one that tells you, here's what you need to grow in, and here's this is how you're going to do it.
Right.
I don't mind helping you get there, but I think they have to be self-selected options.
Absolutely. That's how, self-motivation and absolutely.
100%. We talked about our students have to learn. They have different learning styles, right? Teachers have the same thing. So I think it's really important that you're able to pick your own development opportunities based on how you learn.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. That's excellent. One more question. Since we just talked about talked about this, what opportunities are there for furthering my education? Like I said before, I'm kind of eventually interested in pursuing other options in education, as well as my own kind of professional development. So what kind of options do you guys have?
So our district does have a program for aspiring administrators for when you're ready, and it's a great program. It's very similar kind of to the mentoring program for new teachers, where you have a mentor that you're paired with. Of course, it focuses on an administrator path versus a teaching path. So you would do things like do classroom walkthroughs. So and I'm one of the mentor administrators for that program. So if me and you were partnered up, you would come with me as we do classroom walkthroughs. I'd kind of have my criteria, my checklist, and you would have your own. We would go and sit through, do that walkthrough, and then afterwards there's a lot of reflection times where we're looking through and reflecting on what we saw. What did you see versus what did I see? What things did we need to be looking at, and then figure out how we help teachers to grow. We'd work together on creating growth plans for teachers. So you'd really get to be a part of a lot of the day-to-day responsibilities and duties of an administrator, as well as having opportunities to work with other aspiring administrators. There's a cohort in which our different mentees in that program with the opportunity to work together as well. So it's a great program.
That sounds great. That's exactly the kind of thing that I'm looking for. So wonderful.
Did you have any other questions?
I don't. That's it.
Well, this was great. It's really nice to meet you. And
it was great meeting you as well. Have a great one.
You too.